The United States of America, after Donald Trump's ultimatums, launched the first wave of strikes on military targets on Kharg Island in Iran, while Israel is launching large-scale attacks on bridges and the railway. All this is happening after Trump's threats to destroy Iranian civilization tonight. In response, Iran refused to negotiate and, ahead of the US attacks, used civilians as human shields on bridges and near power plants so that the Americans could not strike critical targets. Meanwhile, there is mild panic in the US as supporters of the MAGA movement are convinced that Donald Trump will use nuclear weapons very soon, and propagandist Tucker Carlson called on officials and the military to attack, and to take the so-called nuclear button away from Donald Trump since he is really preparing to launch a nuclear strike which must not be allowed. In this episode, we'll discuss how we ended up here and why the negotiations ultimately failed. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. This is very important for promoting the channel. I would be grateful to you for that. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, today Donald Trump threatened to destroy Iranian civilization because the negotiations failed. It is reported that Iran sent a 10-point response to Trump today regarding the US proposal to end the war. This was done before the deadline set by Trump, which was 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. Trump states that without an agreement by that time, he will order massive strikes on Iran's civilian infrastructure. Iran states that it will retaliate by striking energy and water supply facilities in the Gulf countries. And after that, Trump said, quote, "I gave them a chance and they didn't take it." But even in the final hours before Donald Trump's ultimatum expired, the US, Iran, and a group of regional mediators were trying to discuss the terms of a two-stage agreement. A 45-day ceasefire, which would then be used for negotiations, and finally the signing of a full agreement to end the war. Donald Trump himself stated that a deal could be reached by Tuesday evening, but in the end, there are no signs that a deal is close. And Iran has stated that it has completely withdrawn from any negotiations, direct or indirect. They say that Iran's response was discussed within the country for 2 weeks and was sent to Pakistani mediators on Monday, but Trump didn't like the response. But what exactly did Iran say in its response? Iran emphasizes the need for a final end to the war, not just a temporary ceasefire. It somewhat resembles the behavior of Vladimir Putin regarding negotiations to end Russia's war against Ukraine. In addition, Iran demanded that ending the war in Iran should also imply stopping hostilities in other regions, such as Lebanon, where Israel is conducting an incursion against the Hezbollah group. The Iranians also demand control over the Strait of Hormuz and are demanding compensation payments for reconstruction. And of course, they are demanding the lifting of all sanctions imposed by the United States and the international community. Obviously, the United States did not agree to any of this. Meanwhile, it seems that Iran was actually given a certain chance. The initial threat from Trump came on March 21 when he stated that the United States would strike and destroy Iranian power plants if Iran did not open the Hormuz Strait within 48 hours. After that, on March 23, shortly before the deadline expired. Before the deadline set by Trump, the US president stated that the US and Iran had held productive talks. So here's another 5 days for negotiations. On March 26, Trump extended this deadline by another 10 days, stating that Iran had requested additional time and thus set a new deadline of April 6. But the closer it got to April 6, the more nervous Trump became. And so, on April 5, he told Iran, quote, "Open the damn strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch." But already on April 6, Trump said that he had even worse options than his previous threats to bomb Iran's power plants and bridges if Iran didn't make a deal. And Trump also said that the whole country could be destroyed in one night, and that's when the conspiracy theories started. Representatives of the MAGA movement said that Donald Trump meant nuclear weapons. when he says like, my threats were one thing, but I have something even more serious. And now propagandist Tucker Carlson stated that Donald Trump is actually ready to use nuclear weapons. That's why he called on American officials and the military to oppose any potential attempts by Donald Trump to launch massive attacks that would lead to the deaths of Iranian civilians. After that, New York Post journalist Caitlin Dernbos published a fragment of Tucker's speech and wrote, quote, President Trump lashed out at Carlson when I asked him about this nonsense this morning. She quoted Trump's words saying that Tucker is a low IQ person who has absolutely no understanding of what's going on. Well, according to her, Trump also said that Tucker Carlson supposedly calls him all the time, but he doesn't answer. Nevertheless, it is known that the United States of America carried out strikes on military targets on Kharg Island in Iran. As a senior U.S. official stated, the military carried out dozens of strikes on military targets on Kharg Island in Iran late Monday night and early Tuesday morning. But that's in U.S. time. According to reports from Iranian state media, an assessment of the damage to Kharg Island after the overnight U.S. bombing showed that most of the infrastructure of the oil transport hub remained undamaged. At the same time, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israeli strikes affected railways and bridges in Iran. At the same time, China and Russia vetoed a UN Security Council resolution aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Let me remind you, the Emirates were trying to promote the idea of a military approach in order to secure a mandate from the Security Council and to unblock this artery. Iran is trying to present it as if the talks were disrupted specifically because of the US attacks. But the foreign minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, who by the way was the main mediator in the negotiations between the US and Iran, stated that it was actually Iran's recent attacks on Saudi Arabia that ultimately disrupted any talks. Amid the ultimatum, the US is essentially using people to protect some critical infrastructure. Iranian media published photos of the so-called human chains. In particular, the Mehr Agency published a report about a human chain at a power plant in Kermanshah. The photo shows a group of Iranians who gathered around the facility holding posters and Iranian national flags. Separately, Mehr News Agency showed a human chain. Another report concerned the White Bridge in Avaz in southern Iran. There, people lined up along the bridge, forming that very human chain and stretched out a long Iranian national flag. It's also clear that children are being brought to the bridges. These children are standing there, serving as a kind of human shield, a living cover against US attacks. These actions themselves show the authorities are trying to fix things. They use the presence of civilians as an additional deterrent to make possible strikes on energy and other important infrastructure more difficult. I'll leave it at that for now. Friends, I recommend you subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, because tonight, well, we'll be keeping an eye on how things develop. And as soon as any news comes up, I'll go live right away and cover everything that's happening. So subscribe. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinion, your thoughts, write your conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation. You can use the QR code on your screens. This is the easiest way to support the work of this channel. With just one click, you can show your support. And in the description of this video, there are various other platforms. There's Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and YouTube sponsorship. And bank transfer, even crypto wallets. Choose any option that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you give. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.